Taming the High Cost of College, Episode 37.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today we have an interview with Kurt and Audrey Jacobsen. They're going to talk today a little bit about a gap year. Audrey's a college student currently, but she took a year off between high school and college to pursue some additional learning opportunities in Africa. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a little bit out of the box. And I'm hoping my kids may consider some of this stuff. You know, right now my oldest is 12 and my youngest baby girl is now 8. And I'm, again, hoping that they may consider something like this or maybe a study abroad. I personally did a study abroad when I was in college back in 1990 or so. And I actually was in Germany when the wall was coming down. And it was a great experience, one of the best things I've ever done. And I think if you asked Audrey, she would say the same thing about her time in Africa as one of the best things she's ever done. All right, well, without much further ado, we will jump into the interview. And they do mention during the interview Holly Bull, who is a consultant who helps with gap year. We actually interviewed Holly in episode number 28. So you can go back and listen to that episode as well, where we talk more about gap year at that time. As always, show notes are available at our website at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/37. All right, today we're sitting down with Kurt and Audrey Jacobsen. Audrey is a student at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and Kurt is her father. And today we're going to talk to them because Audrey participated in a gap year, and I think she's got a lot of great information to share. Welcome, Kurt and Audrey.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your story, Audrey? What is the gap year and what did you do during it and all that kind of thing?
Sure. So I took my gap year after high school. After graduating, I modeled it after a school year, so 2 semesters, you could call them. For the first part, I went to South Africa and Namibia. In South Africa, I volunteered at a Big 5 game reserve, a baboon sanctuary and rehabilitation center. And then in Namibia, I worked at a general wildlife sanctuary. And then I went back home for Christmas. And in the second half, I went to Madagascar, where I worked with children at a children's home. And then I went back to South Africa to work with the baboons again.
Okay, so this was an entire year that you essentially between high school and college that you took off, or not off,
Yep.
but did this instead.
Yes. Yeah, it was a total of 8 months.
All right. So Kurt, as her father, how did this all come about? And I mean, were you behind this or was this her idea or how did this all happen?
I was behind it. I thought traveling was a great idea. Audrey had worked so hard in high school. I think seeing a little bit of the world is important. I felt like there's plenty of time to go to college, and so we were behind it. We had the direction of Holly Bull at the Center for Interim Programs helping us design a gap year, which was very comforting for us. Sending Audrey at the age of 18 to Africa is a big deal, but since we had guidance and direction and established gap year programs, we felt that that would be relatively safe and a great time for her to spend before college.
All right. So, and I know you have another daughter as well. How did you figure out if the gap year was right for you, Audrey?
I wasn't ready for college. And so I kind of thought that anything else would be right for me. I wasn't ready in the sense that I didn't know where I wanted to go. I didn't even know what type of school I wanted. I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do, and I was just burnt out. And so I wanted something that would kind of re-energize me, kind of something that would take me away from the really intense learning environment. I still wanted to be productive with my year off, but I didn't want a situation where I sat down in a classroom every day. And then I wanted to do something where I could kind of try to figure out what I want to do with my future. And the gap year seemed like that's what would give me this.
Okay, so Kurt, now you have two daughters. Did you see a difference between them as far as, because I believe your other daughter, and I'm sorry, I forget her name.
My youngest daughter, who's 18, is Anna.
Okay.
I think, Anna was kind of energized, felt like she's ready to go to college. She felt like she had a direction. So it did feel different. I have two great kids, but they are different. And like Audrey said, maybe she wasn't ready to jump into college right away. And to tell the truth, I was a little afraid of spending a lot of money on college if she wasn't behind it or ready for it. She certainly was academically ready for it, but I think maybe emotionally she wasn't. So Anna was different. She was ready to go. Plus Audrey's a bit of an adventurer, so it kind of fit her personality, the type of person she was, to get on that plane and strike out on her own.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the timeline then. When did you decide to do it? When did you start looking into it? And what did you do about college in the meantime?
Timeline. I think, so I found out about this gap year program, interim studies, my senior year of high school. I want to say sometime maybe in December or early winter. And then I started looking into it more. I flew out to Princeton to meet with Holly Bull. Oh, it was probably, I think I met her out in the fall. And then I started seriously looking into it. But at the same time, I was applying for college, the idea being that I would just defer enrollment for a year. So I applied into college and looked at the gap year program at the same time.
Can you remember what colleges you were applying to?
My dad might have a better idea of where I applied.
McAllister, St. Olaf, Gustavus Adolphus, Grinnell, I think, Lawrence. So smaller schools around the Midwest. We live in Wisconsin.
Right. Okay. So then you were doing this in parallel. So when did you make the decision to defer college for a year? How late in the process were you by then? Did you know what schools you were accepted to by then?
I made the decision before I really started applying. It was something that my parents said that they'll support me taking a gap year, but first I need to apply to college and defer.
Okay. So then you deferred at some of these colleges?
No.
Okay.
The ones that I got into, I decided that I ultimately didn't want to go there. So then when I came back for Christmas in the December of my gap year, I applied to college again.
Okay. So things kind of changed because of the gap year, do you think, or they just changed?
I think they changed because of the gap year. So, for example, my senior year of high school, I only applied to small private schools. And while I was gone, I decided that the only school I really wanted to go to is UW-Madison, which is a very large school. So it completely changed in that respect. And I applied to a lot fewer schools. And this was the only place I wanted to go. And this time I actually had a school that I was excited to apply for.
Okay. So, Dad, how did this all work out with you? I mean, obviously you seem like you're on board. What were your concerns as she was exploring this?
I think a couple concerns. One is strictly safety. There's a lot of gap year programs, and looking on the web, I couldn't really discern what was good or bad, and I really needed to talk to somebody about. When we met Holly Bull, and we flew to Princeton, New Jersey, and sat down with her. She had experience with the programs that Audrey was looking at. Every step of the way, there was somebody at the airport to pick her up. So I had a lot of confidence at that point that she was going to safe places and places that had seen other gap year students. So safety was a big concern. I think finding a program that she liked, and it seemed like through the brainstorming session with Holly that they were able to come up with things relatively quickly that really triggered Audrey's imagination and kind of spoke to her. So I think safety in terms of the gap year was a big thing. I think also going through the college process and at least having a fallback plan if she decided not to do the gap year was important. And it seemed relatively easy to do the planning for both at the same time, and then making a choice when it was time to decide what to do.
Okay. So once you made the decision to do the gap year, do you think the gap year helped you kind of choose what college you were interested in, or what impact did that have on your college trajectory?
Oh, it helped so much. Before I took my gap year, I knew that I wanted to stay in the Midwest. At least I was pretty sure I wanted to, but there's so many schools, around Wisconsin that I couldn't narrow it down. It was funny enough. So a lot of people from my high school apply to UW-Madison and go here, and I absolutely did not want to do that. I didn't even apply. I refused. It was too close to home. I knew too many people here. And then I think going away made me appreciate home better. I had a greater appreciation for it, and I had a greater appreciation for just Madison in general. With that realization, I knew that I wanted to stay in town, and that I knew I would be close to home, but I think at this point I had the skills to balance that, and I think I was more willing to be closer to my family and my parents, and I could appreciate that more.
Okay. So how much time did you spend, I guess, in the first round and then again in the second round, trying to figure out the college process as far as visits and testing? And what kind of budget do you think as a student you need to put aside as far as timing in your senior year?
My senior year, I spent a lot of time thinking about college, visiting colleges. I think most places you go, you're going to at least spend one day, if not a weekend, depending on how far you're going. I would spend hours poring over those giant college textbooks, looking over majors and schools and school sizes, looking at school requirements, looking over so many different websites. I spent a lot of time in just my senior year, but I also started junior year, and I did visit a couple sophomore year too. So I think most of high school, you're thinking about college and where you're going to go. But compared to my second round of applying, the second round went so much faster. I knew where I wanted to go, but then I also knew that I needed a couple alternatives. I mean, my process for choosing other schools to apply to, I went on their website and I chose based off of how easy it was to find the essential facts and how easy their website was to navigate.
Okay.
Yeah. I was very set on Madison.
Right.
But my senior year, I spent a lot of time.
Great. How about you, Kurt? How much time do parents spend in this process? It's not, you obviously take part in the visits and other things. So what do you think your time commitment was?
It's hard for me to know kind of quantitatively the amount of time. I think with Audrey, we visited about 6 schools. With Anna, we visited 9. So that takes a lot of time, the school visits. It certainly, there's a lot of time worrying about getting the applications in and having tests taken and things like that, getting essays written. Yeah, it certainly was a time-consuming process. The common apps, in terms of getting the written materials in, help quite a bit. But putting aside weekends and travel time, and if you're visiting schools out of state, getting flights and things like that does take quite a bit of time.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about how you visited then. Was it weekends, weekdays? Was it trips or local, or describe a typical visit?
Yeah, well, we traveled around the Midwest, and as Audrey mentioned, we live in Madison, and we look primarily at Midwest schools. So, for example, we drove down to Cornell College in Iowa, and it was a 2-day visit. I can't remember if we went during the week or the weekend, but taking the time to travel gave us almost an instant clue whether or not Audrey wanted to go to that particular school. Yeah, so it was a lot of 1 or 2 day trips around the Midwest for us in the car.
We also visited a couple places on the East Coast while we were visiting family. I know I looked at Wesley College in Massachusetts, visiting my aunt who lived there, and we all took, a better part of a day, aside from our family visit to go look at that school.
Okay. So you also tacked on school visits to family trips.
Yes.
That's a recommendation that I tell people too, is if you are going somewhere, you may want to visit if there's anything on your list in that general direction. All right. So now that you're at Madison and you're a junior,
Yes.
do you feel like you're a different student because of the gap year than some of your peers, perhaps?
I think so. Yeah. I think freshman year, when I was living in the dorms, I thought I was more mature than a lot of the other students I was living with. But also, they were kind of experimenting with being out of their parents' house for the first time. And I had already gone through that. In that respect, I think I was a little further along than they were. And I think I had a bit more, I felt like I had a bit more global life experience. I think it made college easier in the respect that I knew what I wanted, and I had life experience to back that up. And so I think it gave me a better direction for college, and some people know exactly what they want to do straight out of high school. And I didn't have that. So I can't compare that too closely, but I think it prepared me really well for entering college.
Okay. And then the testing and that kind of stuff. Did you do a lot of work around testing? Was that a big deal for you? How many times did you take the test as an example?
I took the ACT twice, and looking back, it probably would have been helpful if I took it a third time, but I really hate standardized tests like that. It really, really wiped me out. So I only took it twice. I didn't retake anything my second round of applying. But so I took the ACT. I know quite a few people that took the SAT and the ACT. And I also spent quite a bit of time studying for AP tests.
Okay, so you studied for AP tests, but did you study for the ACT as well or take some sort of class?
Not really. I think my parents got me a book, and I might have flipped through it a couple times. I wasn't very well prepared for it.
Okay.
It was part of my rebellion against college, I think.
All right, and everything turned out okay all the same, right?
Yeah, still got in.
Okay. What would you tell parents and or students that are running into the college process as far as what they should be doing to get ahead of the game or prepare? What do you feel like some good advice? Say you had a cousin. Mm-hmm. What advice would you be giving to parents of juniors and themselves?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I would say is don't feel pressured to rush into it. I think especially in the U.S., there's a lot of pressure to go straight into college after you graduate high school. You go high school, college, either grad school or you go straight into the workforce. And I think it's really important to take a step back and think about if it's right for you. I think some people do great. My sister went straight to college after high school and she's doing really well. And it was the right path for her. But for me, obviously, it wasn't. And I think it's really important to take a step back and look to see if you want to keep going head first or if you need to take a detour.
Right. How about you, Dad? Any advice to parents out there that are, obviously you've been through this twice now, or I guess maybe you can almost say 3 times with Audrey doing it twice. What would be your advice to your brother or sister who had high school kids?
We were just in New Jersey, and we had dinner with my brother-in-law who has 2 younger kids, and so we talked about this quite a bit because they were, even though their kids are 5 and 3, they were worried to death about college. And I think what I learned is don't overspend in college. We're fortunate that both of our kids chose public schools. University of Wisconsin, of course, and the University of Minnesota has reciprocity with the University of Wisconsin, so we're paying in-state tuition at both of those places. But we looked at a lot of private schools, schools that sounded great but had the $40,000 or $50,000 price tag. I fretted over, one of my kids getting into a great school, deciding to go there, and unable to say no to those high college costs. But so the advice I gave to my brother-in-law was, don't overspend for college. I personally don't think that there's a great value there. And my kids are getting good education at public colleges. I think the other that we found most recently with Anna is she applied to a lot of schools, and Anna had great test scores, really high GPA, but she didn't get into a lot of her choices. And it's my understanding now that kids apply to so many colleges that they're overwhelmed with really great applicants. And it's not like when I was a kid, if you had really great scores, you could pick your school. So I think there's a lot of disappointment in not getting into your first choice. And maybe the game you have to play is to apply to a lot of them and be flexible and willing to go to other schools. I think the other thing that we were really fortunate with in terms of college costs is my parents started a college savings plan through Minnesota that really helped us with costs. And we were lucky to have my parents or Audrey and Anna's grandparents willing to do that. So I talked to my father-in-law about that as well. But yeah, not overspending, not being disappointed if you don't get into your top choice, because I don't think it's a reflection necessarily on the student, and college savings plans if you have money available to do that.
Right. Great. Well, I appreciate you guys spending the time with us. We're going to wrap things up here. Any last thoughts as far as, again, advice you would be given to other families?
I think one thing I would tell students that are busy applying to college is that your grades are important, test scores are important, but I think your essays, in my opinion, are the most important. I think, when I was my first round of applying to college, I felt like I didn't have anything very good to write about, and so my application essays were pretty bad, looking back on it. And after my gap year, I had a bit of inspiration, and my essays were a lot better. And I think that played a huge role in how many schools I got into. I didn't get into that many the first time I applied, and I think if I had had a better essay, your main essay, that would have helped a lot.
Okay, that leads me to a follow-up question. I assume your essay was some of your experiences in the gap year?
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. I wrote about my time working with the baboons.
Okay. Well, great. I appreciate your guys' time, and we will wrap things up here.
Sure.
But if there's...
Brad, I have one more thing that I'd like to add about the gap year and kind of international travel.
Okay.
Audrey has a great job now. She works 10 hours a week at the university, involved with animal necropsies, in fact. And I think the number one reason she got that job is because of her gap year experience. And I found the same with my Peace Corps experience. Both getting into graduate school, I think the Peace Corps experience really ranked high and favorably in terms of my admissions and future jobs as well. So in my opinion, not for everybody, but the gap year really worked well for Audrey, and international travel worked well for me as well.
Well, great. I appreciate all the information you guys shared. If people need more information, I will provide additional show notes and so forth at our website, pointing back to some of the stuff that Audrey was involved in, and we will take it from there.
Sure, that sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Kurt and Audrey. Again, as a reminder, Holly Bull's interview is episode number 28, and you can access that at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/28. Stay tuned for next week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.